I'm so excited to be here with Jackie Kirschen to talk all about her experience growing her scalable business. So, Jackie, I know that we have some level of history. We've gone through a lot of life together as far as like becoming mothers and, just I remember a lot of what you went through when we first started working together with your business. And I think hopefully you agree that there's been some massive changes in just the way that you approach business, let alone the results that you get. So take me back to when you first started your business. What was that like? Like, how quickly did you start making money? And what was the business model that you started with?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I first started, it was September 2020 in pandemic. Everyone went online, and I always had a dream to start my own private practice. And I was still a full-time bariatric dietitian for a surgeon in private practice. And I said, I guess I'm doing this. I guess this is no more brick and mortar. So I just went in, and it was my side hustle. And I started reaching out to family and friends, and there's a big medical community here in San Diego. I'm grateful that my dad is connected. So again, I used my connections, and which really helped me get clients right away. I was not on social media for the first 2 months. And I was very fortunate, and I started with one-on-one just to get my feet wet. Like, I had already been counseling patients, of course, but it was completely different running my own practice, my own sessions, just figuring things out myself. So I was very fortunate. I can probably go look, but I made 5,000. I think within my second month, probably my first or second month, and then I made 15,000 my third month, and then by January, shortly after, I was like, I can't do this. I'm full. And I was completely booked. I was already like, I'm at this bottleneck. And that's when I started my first group program. And that's when I hit my first 20K month. So that was January 2021. So I was very fortunate. It was pretty quick, but I realized again that that one-to-one model was keeping me stuck, and I was burned out. That's when I decided I left my bariatric job because I couldn't do it anymore. So I had great initial success. I'm very fortunate. And I do think that it was really important that I was learning and then tweaking and then learning and then tweaking. I tried not to get upset about like this was bad when this was wrong and this is that, but I was trying to learn from my mistakes because I made plenty of them.
Well, and so you started with a cash pay business, is that right?
Everything.
Um, and from what I remember, and I could be wrong, were you already focused on weight loss as being the main thing that you were helping people with?
Yeah, I was always passionate about weight loss, having been through my own weight loss journey and also being in bariatrics. It was always just something ever since I went through my own personal journey. And I have felt that even though I have passion for pregnancy, like fertility, I was having obviously like a, very special connection to that, and eating disorders, another special connection. But I also knew that, if I was talking to everybody, I was talking to nobody.
Mhm.
And so I really like sat down and I was like, who is my ideal client, and who is the person that I see myself not only helping for 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, but for years and
Mhm.
sticking. And my journey myself was years. And so my coach when I worked was 5 years. So I was trying to think in that lens. I was like, first of all, that's a brilliant business model to have a client for 5 years. And then also like, who am I so passionate about? What am I really good at? And more importantly, who do I connect with? And I think that's why I'm successful in what I do, is because my clients always tell me, like, they just feel that comfort with me. I had even a bariatric patient, unfortunately, not see the dietitian I hired to replace me, and like only requested me. And I had to have a conversation to be like, I'm leaving. Like, this is not okay. You have to see her. So when I had that conversation with them, they said, but you get it. You've walked in my shoes. And that really stuck with me. So when I was making that decision of like, what's my niche, that in my heart and in my gut was like, that's that. I want that person to trust me.
Mhm. And I think that probably was a big factor in your ability to, first of all, make as much as you did right off the bat, and then also be able to transition into a group program as quickly as you did. Because if you didn't have that niche, it might have been a lot harder to get the ball rolling and get the influx of clients, and also to create a program that was even remotely designed to fix a problem for people. So I do think obviously your situation's a little unusual as far as how quickly everything happened, but I also think you made some really smart decisions right off the bat that a lot of people struggle to make, right? Like a lot of them are like, I'm not sure who I want to work with. So I'm just going to be general. And it takes them a lot longer because they try to build it that way. So if you guys are listening and you're still stuck on the, I don't know who I help and I don't have a niche, hopefully Jackie's story about how quickly she was able to make that much money in her new business can inspire you to bite the bullet and figure it out because it is worth it. So you were saying that you were feeling burnt out, you were hitting a bottleneck with the amount of clients you could take and then you created this group program. What was your experience like when you created that group program and you're still running that program now, right?
It's completely revamped. So
Yeah.
instead completely. But again, like this is what I'm saying. Like I started that group program in January 2021 and I relaunched it in May 2022 and I relaunched it again in January 2023. Now that I didn't even think about that, it's been through 3 iterations.
Mhm.
And it was very successful, but it started out as like a small cohort of 8 people. And again, I was like getting my feet wet. I was kind of like figuring it out, right? It was the Mindful Weight Loss Boot Camp. And again, many mistakes. WhatsApp, people had my phone number, like just, like all the, but again, like this is, I was figuring it out.
Yeah.
And the next one, I had the kind of like maintenance membership in the back end, that led into like mindful living. So like I kept building upon it. And now I have a tiered system. And
Mhm.
now I have an evergreen model because launching, we could talk about another time, especially as a mom, I was having a lot of postpartum anxiety. So I just learned like that model was I did the webinars, I did that kind of stuff. And it wasn't for me anymore. I was so
Mhm.
tired, and this is just it's so much easier, it's way more successful for me,
Mhm.
and my retention rate is about a 60 to 65%, so I don't need to sign new clients because I'm giving my clients such an incredible customer experience. I'm getting them they don't want to leave,
Mhm.
so it just that's what I was working to build, so for the people listening, like, don't let if something I'm sure you remember the calls when I was like, "Laura, I failed. I didn't tell him." Like, but here I am, and it's insane. If I wouldn't have done that, I wouldn't be here today with what
Mhm.
I
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about the trial and error process that you went through. Cause I do think even if you're going to go evergreen, you can learn a lot from live, either
Yes.
live launching or live, even if it's just live webinars for an evergreen program, it's still a really great way to get your messaging nailed rather than going straight into this model where like it's a recording and you're sending ads. Cause there are coaches that teach that and it can work. But I think there's actually as you were saying, there's a lot of stuff you can learn, even if it's like kind of an uncomfortable process of things not working. So, when you were first getting into the launch model, walk our listeners through some of the challenges that you ran into that was maybe not having that work as well as you would like it to.
I mean, I'm very comfortable speaking and on camera, and that's like where I thrive. So I was like, oh, this could be easy. Like, I'm just gonna sell I don't know if you can cuss on this. You're gonna sell a lot of this. And I think my expectations, I didn't realize like for people to shell out like whether it was 1,000, like if it was like 1,997 at the time, whatever it was, it's a lot of money to a lot of people. And so I feel like there's a lot that goes into that process in terms of like the actual, like priming the pump as a sense. Like I didn't really do that. Like I didn't like kind of like get my audience ready, like something is coming. So I wish I would have done that because I just kind of was like, here's a webinar. And like, for example, like a lot of stuff that I learned from you is like when you're like, oh yeah, let's give a freebie. And I'm like, okay, let me give them recipes. And it's like, but how's that going to convert them? And I'm like, but they want that. And you're like, but I don't care what they want. Like, what do they need to hear in order to become a client? Like, that's the stuff that like I never thought of, right? I am a service provider. So when I have my audience tell me what they want, I just give it to them. And this is where I needed to like really shift my mindset to like, okay, like I'm trying to like change like the buyer psychology. Like, how do I get them to move down the funnel? Again, I say these things, and if I would have said these things 2 years ago, I'd be like, "What are you talking about?" So I I want you guys to know, like, it takes like these mistakes to learn this, but I didn't understand the complexity of what goes through like the process of getting someone to buy. I was like,
Mhm.
who doesn't want to buy my program? It's amazing. I get people results. Like how I was so frustrated with you, right? I was just like, I got one person on that call. Granted, I filled my spots in other ways, so it's still a success, but I didn't realize like just my, charismatic personality with a bunch of client testimonials, like that doesn't really mean anything until you
Yeah.
like get the objections and you challenged me. Like I didn't even know how to answer half of the thing because I was just like, but that's what they want to hear. And so something you said to me that really stuck was, or Colin said, you don't want to be up there for claps. And
Mhm.
I was always up there for claps. And that was like really hard for me to shift that mindset. And like, I don't want people to just be like, good job. That was amazing. I wanted them to buy and work
Yeah.
with. So I think a lot of it was mindset and strategy. Of course, there were the bits and pieces of like the email sequences. And so I had to, really get organized and understand like what was I capable at the time with my limited resources in terms
Mhm.
of one intern helping me and what was going to move the needle for them to actually like click buy.
Yeah. Well, I remember one of the things we spent a lot of time on was even your webinar and how the original webinar you had was like just packed with so much information, which is really common. And, I know it's like easy to look back now and kind of giggle and be like, I can't believe I thought that was going to work. But from what I remember, somebody taught you to do that, first of all. Second of all, that's a really common belief for especially health professionals that they think, oh, if I just give them so much value in that session, the webinar, the workshop, whatever you're doing, then of course they want to buy. And then you were also very confident that you could help people. So between that, like this is such a valuable webinar, and you were so confident, it seemed probably on the outside that why wouldn't this work? And so when you had those experiences where the messaging that was designed to create sales wasn't creating sales, you were like you said, you were getting sales through other means, but if you wanna scale your business, you have to have messaging that creates the desire to buy, right? So, just being able to shift into messaging that was designed to create the buying decision and not just say, "Wow, that was so helpful. I'm gonna go spend the next 3 months working on what you just taught me in that webinar." That I think I could be wrong, but I think that was probably a huge change that has now probably carried on into other marketing and other strategies that you've used even as your business model has changed.
Oh, and even just I didn't do a webinar for the next one because I just said, what was I capable of? I was moving. I had a 4-month-old baby, all the things breastfeeding and trying handling my clients. She was 4 months. So I had been working for, 3 months, just figuring out how to be a mom. And I said, what am I capable of? And I was like, I can write really amazing emails and like use what I learned from the webinars and change that messaging
Mhm.
instead of just like, all the like again, we come from even just like an internship, they teach us like teach the client instead of like again, it's the mindset, shift their beliefs. So that's why I think my second reiteration was way more successful going from 8 to 32.
You did that with just an email launch?
Yeah, and all
Wow.
DMs and all stories, and that was my 30 whatever, it was 27. Yeah, it was a 27,000 launch first, and then I had a 34,000, and now that's my recurring revenue each
Every
month.
month?
Now I just hit 45, and I didn't
Wow.
hit 40, so I'm hopefully I can I have a few more days. Hopefully I can touch 45 or we'll see. But yeah,
Yeah.
but again, like guys, it takes time to get there, of course, but that's what I was capable of. But my messaging and the way that I showed up on stories, and it was so much more authentic, but I was really tapping into like I got people like DMing me, asking me about like, you know, obviously the, the staples of like, how many modules do I get? And like, what's the price? But like, I was having like real authentic conversations. Like, I'm really scared. I'm really scared this isn't, and like, it was more than just like the claps. So
Mhm.
that converted so many people. And now I think I've just gotten into this kind of like I do it every day, and it's a part of what I do. Everything I do, I'm always thinking about, obviously, how can I help the client transform their life, but also, like, how can I get into their head? And, like,
Mhm.
how can I but I've been there too, so that's why it really helps me because I understand what they're feeling and thinking.
Yeah.
More so in the part of, like, their desire to change and their what's the word that I'm looking for? Their capability, their confidence in in themselves. So, yeah, it's crazy to see, but again, I learned from those mistakes. What did I not do?
Mhm.
And then I just kept refining to get better at it.
Yeah, well, because a lot of it sounds like what you're dealing with is some of the more advanced objections that you get when you've addressed the objections of the program itself. So if people are like, if they don't believe your program is gonna work at all, then they don't get to the objection of "I'm scared," right? You would never say, "I'm scared to do something that I don't think is gonna work." Like, you just wouldn't do it. So a lot of, I think, the challenges you went through earlier in launching this program, you had to get to a place where you had overcome the belief that you could help them. They had to know, like, yes, this is a program that I want. This is a program that gets people results. I can see the journey because it's not just you didn't fire hose them with all this information. You actually walk them along the journey to see how the program is the solution to what they need help with. That's when those objections of, but is this something I can do?
Yeah.
That's really the last domino that has to fall when you're selling is like, they could believe with 100% certainty that your program works and that you're great and that, you can help lots of people. The last domino is, but can I do this? And if
Yeah.
you're getting those kind of objections, and they're not even objections, it's the question that's standing in the way of the buying decision. It's like, can I really do this? That's evidence that you did a really good job with all of the other messaging to get them to a place where the last thing that they're concerned about is if they have what it takes. So, those kind of things are the kind of objections we wanna get. 'Cause at
Yeah.
the end of the day, like, that's a much easier conversation to have with someone to help them see what's possible for them than to try to convince them that your program is what they should want, right? So, all of those iterations and all of that practice that you got over the last couple of years got you to a place where now you really just are helping people see that they can be successful, which if your goal is to help people, first of all, the paid program is where you can help them the most, and them deciding to take that seriously is where you can help them the most. But even being able to get them into a belief state that they can be successful is a great way to help people. Because if you can, if you imagine if the person walks away from that conversation questioning, maybe I can't do this, even if they work with somebody else, they're probably not going to be successful because they're constantly doubting if they can be successful regardless of the program. So, being able to help somebody make that decision that, yes, this is possible for me is already helping them. And then when they're in that program, that's where you really have your full capacity to have the biggest impact.
Yeah. I mean, I will say I still have to work on this with my clients. I remember the like it's not an overnight thing that happens. So not only are you giving them that kind of like cheerleader confidence that they can, but you have to work on that's why my program's called Mindful Weight Loss Academy now, because everything is like about their mindset. And
Mhm.
so it's something that they struggle with, I struggle with on a daily basis. But again, I didn't realize how much I needed to focus on that. I was so focused on what do you get and what are the perks and what are these things and la 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 la. And no one cared about that. Even if I was like, it's so funny. My program is double the amount and I'm selling like so much easier and so much more than when it was cheaper. And that's why I think I was frustrated because when I first started, it was 797. And I was just like, how? So again, cheaper is not easier. Cheaper is not better.
Mhm.
So it really came to like not the external metrics, but really like the internal drivers and like what was the value and like what was the transformation that they were gonna get?
Mhm. So, I'm sure I could talk a lot longer about all of this stuff with you, but I would love to hear how this has impacted your life. Because I know you have a daughter that's a little older than mine, and I can definitely appreciate the challenges of having a baby with running a business. And I would imagine that the business you started probably wouldn't be very doable in your current life phase. So
No. Yeah. And,
no.
well, it just I think I would feel unfulfilled in
Mhm,
all aspects of my life as a mom, and, like, now I'm so fulfilled because I'm able to be so present with Olivia, and I'm able to help my clients to the highest capacity, and I've also grown my business internally, which has been, like, a game changer for me and my clients and the revenue and everything, so I do think that scaling to this group program is hybrid. Again, there's like components of it with that one-on-one, which is why people stay because
mhm,
of the piece to have that. And also the community. I mean, I have people who are even just in the maintenance, they're paying me $200 a month just to be in the Facebook group, like just so they can be a part of everything. And that's that accountability that they want. But you'll be very proud. I am not working on weekends. I was working every single day up until, I finally hit this amazingness for me. And like now I absolutely don't work on weekends. I'm not filming TikToks on weekends. I'm not do like all the lower level busy things that I was doing because I was just wearing all of the hats and doing all of the things. And now, as you said, as a mom, I'm working smarter. I'm still working very hard, but I'm working smarter, not harder.
mhm. Well, that I will say this conversation, I'm like, wow, you've grown a lot since we were working together. Cause I remember, I think a big motivation for you making these changes was the fact that you were pregnant and was because you knew you didn't want to have a 7-day a week job for yourself when you had your baby. So what else has been the impact of making these changes? I mean, you said you basically are doing like 40 to 50K, and I'm sure it's growing and it's something that's happening on a month-to-month basis. And then I don't know how many hours you're working, but not working weekends is a huge improvement. So, what has this done for you in your life? And like, what made it worth it to go through all of that frustration and, trial and error and really never letting it just be like this is the way it has to be, because I think it would have been really easy for you to just be like I guess this is it, right? And so you really persisted through challenges to figure out, okay, there's got to be a better way to do this. So now that you're on that track, and I know there's always things that we could do better, right? But you're in this place where stuff has massively improved. What has that done for you personally as the business owner and as somebody who's got other things in their life that they care about other than their business?
Well, that's it. Like, that's it. Like, before, it was my entire life was my business, and I was just married to Todd. I wasn't like that was second, honestly. Like, everything I ate, slept, drank, what they said, like, I breathed. I was in the shower and I was thinking about, like, and now it doesn't, it still is always on my mind, and I'm obsessed with my business, but my to-do list now doesn't give me anxiety because it doesn't have to be done. Nothing is urgent because I've built this machine that runs like a well-oiled machine that does really, really well. And I think just my mindset, I'm still working on my emotional regulation 100%, but I think my friends and family have even just noticed I'm much more present. I come to things, I do things. I would like not do things, or like I wouldn't want to have a Shabbat dinner, or like I wouldn't want to because like I needed to catch up on these things, or I needed to remember the days when I was like manually charging people like on my calendar, like, but I definitely feel like now I am just like, I'm Jackie, I'm a mom before I am the mindful nutritionist. And
Mm,
before it was like I was only Eat Right for Life and the mindful nutritionist. Like it was only my business. So now I have a bigger purpose, but I've grown more, which still doesn't make sense to me because I was working so much. And now I'm still like, working a lot. Of course, I own the business, but I can delegate it to somebody. I can have my virtual assistant do it, or like, my new dietitian, like I can pass it off to people. And yeah, not working on the weekends has been huge to even just like go for a walk with a girlfriend. Like I wouldn't do things while Olivia was napping because I was working. And now if I want to watch TV, or if, I want to just relax or read, or like hadn't picked up a book in years. And now like I can because I don't have to worry, which is big.
mm, mhm. That's huge. And I feel like even with having your daughter, as you know, the time passes so fast. It's crazy. It's like when you're in it, it's like, "Oh my gosh, waking up every 2 hours, this is exhausting." And then 6 months later, you're like, "Oh my gosh, you're not a baby anymore." It just seems like it goes so fast, and I know for me personally, it's been really important to not miss milestones and not miss time with her, and that doesn't mean like, I love working, I know you do too, I love serving my clients, and, like, I like having my own identity outside of just motherhood, and I'm not wanting to just, not see the baby all day and not, spend time with my husband and just be like on the computer thinking about work all the time. So that I think a lot of people need to hear that this is possible because as you said, you were attaching the amount you were working to what was possible for you in your business. And you're now proof that the results can actually be even better when you don't attach it to the work and the
Yeah.
effort that you're putting in.
Yeah. I was, so upset when I didn't hit certain, like revenue goals or not even revenue goals, but more of like how many women. And it's just so funny now how like when I stopped worrying about that, but I started worrying about the act kind of like the 80-20 rule, right? And I started worrying about the things that like actually could support me. And I mean, when I hit 43, I was and that was the hardest month of my life this past May. I went through something personal and it was really, really hard for me. And I sat there and I was just like, I can't believe I did that. And I held myself together in such a composed way because I was okay and I knew what I was doing. And I don't believe in manifesting like, oh, I'm going to become a millionaire and it just happens. It obviously takes a lot of strategy, but now I'm seeing that like, wow, this is true. Like I went on vacation for 16 days and I made $31,000 and I worked for less than half a month, and I took time for me to build that, and it took me the errors that I had to make to be like, "What went wrong and what could I have done better?"
Yeah. Yeah, really looking at the failure, quote unquote, and not running from it, but saying, what can I learn and what can I take from that experience to make this better? Which is nobody gets to skip the hard parts. Nobody gets to like just go on this like straight trajectory to success. But I think the people that do get the success the fastest are the ones that actually look at the mistakes that they made and evaluate it and say, what can I do differently because of the lesson I got from that. So it's great to see that you're doing it. And I feel like you're like a whole new person. Just your energy is so different. It's really, really cool to see. So I know you have stuff you have to do, and I want to make sure we get you off on time. Is there any last words of wisdom that you would share with our audience who is feeling super inspired by your journey and wants to get on that same path to this amazing recurring revenue business that you've built?
Well, the first thing that I would do is hire a business coach. 'Cause that's how I started, right? I started with the business coach. I came to you. I mean, it just has been you introduced me to 2 other business coaches that I still obviously have James and Colin's programs, but, like, I just think it's so important that, like, if you're expecting someone else to invest in your program, you should be able to invest in yourself as well. So, that was, like, the first and I never had an issue with that. It was more like my family
Oh,
and
yeah.
husband, like, to me, I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna spend a few $1,000s." Wait, as in, like, 12? Like, and I'm like, "Yeah," and they're like, "No." I'm like, "Yeah, I am." Because I can as I have proven, like, my dad always says, like, "Can you buy a me" it's his joke, "Can you buy me a McFlurry?" Like, because, like, I mean, I made my annual dietitian salary by February. This year, like, it just that's what I was making.
Yeah.
$32 an hour, I was making that. But I will tell every single person when they say, "What's the best piece of advice you could give me for starting a business?" Hire a coach. That was the first thing that I did, and that's why I've been successful, and I also think it's so important to work with multiple people because again, like, what I learned from you when I go through BBD Live, I learned different things from him. When I hear Colin's podcast, I hear, like, Amy Porterfield's, like, I have other people who I follow and listen to who have helped me get to this path. So I would say believe in yourself and invest in yourself. And if you want to have that success, like Why not have someone who has literally been through it before just show you? You guys are doing that for your clients. You're no exception. Let someone do that for you.
So logical. I love it.
It makes sense, right? So I never had an issue with it, but I see a lot of people who are scared, and I don't know if that's the push. Like again, you have to be able to, commit to it and invest in it, and that's how you're going to reap the rewards.
Well, and I think for you, even being able to see the vision for yourself, even if family was like, I don't think that's a good idea. You didn't just let them talk you out of it. You really were like, I know that this is something I need, and you did it. I know
Yeah.
not everyone has a relationship like that. And, sometimes there's different circumstances, but I do think people hopefully listening will understand that figuring it out on their own is not something that most successful people have been able to do. So, but Jackie, thank you so much for coming on here and sharing your time and your story and your just your energy. I really honestly I want you to know that I can feel the difference, and just hearing what you've built and how you're even thinking about it and talking about it is I'm just so happy that that's what you're experiencing now, because I always knew that you had the capability, and it's just really great to see it coming to fruition now.
Well, thank you. You're definitely a part of it, so I appreciate it.
Thank you, and I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation as much as I did.
Thanks so much.